それでは大変長らくお待たせいたしました。ネイティブイングリッシュインスティテュード、フリス・メイヤー様による講演です。フリス・メイヤー様、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
I didn't think it was possible to be multilingual unless you live in a country where you can use all those languages, like Switzerland. Well, I don't live in Switzerland. I live in Seattle, Washington, a state where people speak English most of the time. However, I live in all these languages every day. Français, Ruski, Nihongo. And I do it thanks to technology, even though I'm closer to 60 than 50. The other reason that I managed to be exposed to adult language learning is through the work I do. So as founder at NEI, I'm very closely involved with discovering the best practices of adult language learners, and I'm going to share them with you today. So this is a very recent survey of adult learners of English, all between the ages, well, most between the ages of 25 and 45, a few younger than 25, and a few older than 45. About half of them, more than half, 56%, speak Japanese as their first language. Another 28% speak Russian, 10% Turkish, and then a couple other languages, Arabic, Ukrainian. So when these adult learners of English were asked, what are the barriers for you in achieving your English goals? 41% said the same thing. What do you think that was? Any guesses? Too busy. That's the right answer. Sort of. What they actually said was time. 41% said the biggest barrier is time. Then the next largest group of responses, 28%, said don't know the best way to study. After that, 17% said cost and can't find content that suits my needs, but time and don't know the best way to study were the biggest responders. So how do you find more time? The obvious is apps, because we all carry these smartphones, and whenever we have 5 minutes or 10 minutes free, we can find something on these phones. So we asked in this survey, what apps have people tried and liked? And this was the list that came back. Now, I'm sure that if you look at this list, some of you have apps that you like that aren't here. I like the app Fluent U, but it didn't come up in the survey. Who has an app that they like that they don't see here? Please shout it out. Yes. Good. Anyone else? Okay, so the interesting thing is when this survey asked people to tell us when and where they use language learning apps, we were a bit surprised by the responses. 58 told us at home. 34 responders said on my commute. 20 responded waiting in line. 17 during breaks at work, 10 while exercising. 18 responded, I don't use apps for language learning. The ones who do use apps, the largest group, 18%, said they use apps for 20 to 30 minutes per week. Then 16% each said 10 to 20 minutes, 1 to 10 minutes. A handful of people use apps for more than 30 minutes a week. 32% said, I like them, but I don't use them. So that was really interesting to us, that they say they like these apps, but they're not using them. So somehow that's not solving the problem of how to use our time for learning. Which brings me to that second biggest barrier. Two barriers. Barrier, something that blocks us from accomplishing our goal, right? And this one was, I don't know the best way to study. Oops. When I forgot Japanese, it's not because I didn't care about it. I wanted to remember the language. In fact, for years, I carried these flashcards in my purse and tried to study kanji. Why didn't it work? Because it didn't have any meaning for me in my life at that time. So I want to tell you what the 5 tricks are of successful adult language learners and what does work. So the first of those 5 tricks is use your age advantage skills. Whoa, there's an age advantage to learning language? And does anyone want to question this? The Russians have a wonderful expression, starost не радость. Getting old is no picnic. We all know about our hearing getting worse. I had to put my glasses on to see the screen just now. Takes longer to remember things. But turns out there are 2 kinds of memory, semantic memory and crystallized IQ, that is, using knowledge and experience, that actually improve as we age. Who in this room is younger than 45? Show of hands. I have to put my hand down because I am not. Okay, those of you who are younger than 45, you have something to look forward to. You have not yet reached your peak performance. In this chart, this is, there we go. This is the age group between 45 and 55. And that is when you will actually reach your peak performance for vocabulary, information, and comprehension. Some of the research shows that that window is open as late as 60. I hope to God it is. Research is of one mind that older adults score higher on reading comprehension tests. So if someone tells you adults can't learn language, don't believe it. Believe in yourself. Trick number 2. Remember my flashcards that didn't work? It's because I didn't have a purpose. You have to find a purpose. And that's not a purpose. This is a porpoise. So the reason that I suddenly discovered a purpose for reactivating my Japanese is that NEI, my company, started to grow very fast in Japan. And often in meetings, people expected me to speak. And so I had a very immediate and necessary purpose. Many of NEI's subscribers also have a work purpose for using the NEI course to activate their skills. So Teiji opened a subsidiary in the US. Kenichi manages a sales team in Singapore. June needed to run clinical trials in Brazil. Earlier today, when Julia of South by Southwest talked about employers who are investing in lifelong learning, that sounded very familiar to me because that is the audience that we serve. Now, if you don't have a work purpose, but you want to reactivate your language skills, find a purpose It doesn't have to be related to work. You just need to find something that is going to make you use that target language every week. And I showed you surveys from English language learners, but really it's the same story, whatever language we're working on, isn't it? I see a lot of heads nodding here. So, successful adult language learners all fit language into their day, every day. In the same survey, those respondents who were asked, what do you like to read or listen to in order to improve your English? 31% reported movies and TV shows, 21% newspaper or journal articles, 19% news, radio shows, or podcasts, and then 14% grammar and vocabulary explanations with quizzes. There was music and a few others. So we might not think of this as free time because it's currently occupied with something, but it's time that we can use for our target language. I was faced with exactly this kind of choice 2 days ago. Dans l'avion, j'ai regardé en français un film avec les sous-titres en japonais. When I first saw the movie Red Sparrow as an option on my screen, I thought, yes, I've been wanting to watch that movie. And I started to click English. And then I stopped myself, no, I should watch it in a different language. I'm tired, I'll watch it in English. No, I should watch it. So I ended up watching this Hollywood movie in French with Japanese subtitles. I understood maybe 70% of the vocabulary, maybe less if we're honest. But it didn't matter because I had an immersive experience. And that's what's fun. So this is my kitchen in Seattle. And so there are my coffee mugs, and this is my TV. My TV only speaks Japanese because when I like to cook, and when I'm cooking or cleaning up the kitchen, that's Nihongo time. And because Japan TV in Seattle has only one channel, I have to watch a lot of stupid shows. I usually turn off the sumo. But this is how I make sure that I have at least 20 minutes of my day every day in my target language. No matter, I want to show you a couple of other ways that you can immerse yourself simply by substituting activities you already do in your target language. Who here uses Kindle? Any Kindle users? Okay, good. So Kindle is really wonderful for whatever you are reading anyway. Read it in your target language. When you come to a word that you're not quite sure about, you right-click on it, and Kindle shows you the definition of that word. You don't have to open a dictionary. You don't even have to switch screens. It's that easy. Do the same thing with your news. When you're reading a news site on your phone, you do exactly the same thing. You right-click on that word that you want to check out, and it will open your dictionary and tell you what that word means. If it doesn't open the dictionary, if you see a message, Manage Dictionary, you simply need to install a dictionary. There are a lot of free ones to choose from. So whether you like to watch or read about sports, weather, health, read in your target language. I use Google Translate and voice to text constantly. They are the single most important tools in creating a multilingual life for yourself. Let me move on to trick number 3. Oh, well, not quite yet. So I read the news in Russian every day. There's an app called Medusa. It's an independent news station out of Riga, Latvia. And I do exactly the same thing. When I come to a word I'm not quite sure about, I right-click, I look it up. What I get out of reading the news from another country is not just language. I also get a different perspective because they see things in sometimes diametrically different ways. So these are all tools that help us to immerse ourselves. Trick number 3 is you have to know where you're starting and where you're going. Brush up, I want to brush up my language, is not a strategy that works. So you need to create a learning plan for yourself. And the way that we do that at NEI is whenever a subscriber starts on the course, we conduct a live interview. And then an expert evaluator creates a speaking assessment so that the learner knows in each of these key subject areas, that is pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, and fluency, what are the specific points that he needs to work on. And then those are outlined in an individual plan with very detailed, personalized goals. And importantly, this person's goals and interests. So Masafumi has a 2-year-old daughter. He wants to work on his pharmaceutical-related English because his company is expanding internationally. He likes movies and plays baseball. These help to create the content stream so that when, again, this is the NEI program, when Masafumi has his weekly one-on-one sessions with an NEI teacher, the discussion topics and his homework assignments all fit. They are matched with this AI database to that profile. So this pharmaceutical researcher is working on topics related to drugs and humanized mice. He has topics about kids because he has a daughter, Ichiro because he loves baseball. All of the teachers are Americans and Canadians, first language English, certified in teaching English as a second language. So they can help a learner of any level to achieve his goals. This is, let's see if this is, yeah, I wanted to talk for a minute about how apps can be used very strategically to fit that specific plan that you have for yourself. So that same pharma researcher and his colleagues who are going with him to a scientific conference has in their assignments vocabulary like genome, correlation, molecular. These are really hard words. Instead of trying to just memorize them as lists of words, they can put them into this app called Linguist. And the Linguist app takes those words and creates meaningful sentences out of them. So you can learn your target vocabulary in sentences that make sense. Compare the molecular structure of the two substances. If you encounter a situation where people often have trouble understanding you, for example, if you said, my papa is, and they think you're talking about a marine mammal, there's an app called Blue Canoe that is really helpful for mastering the vowel sounds of English. It's based on the color vowel system, and the color vowel system uses brain science to help you by taking advantage of your age advantages, the fact that even after our brains no longer capture the sounds of English, we still have the ability to remember them using color and movement. So I'm curious, if you look at these 5 words, learn, work, nerd, bird, purpose, do you see any pattern what do those words have in common? Anyone? Sound. Yes, they're all spelled differently, aren't they? E-A, O-R, E-R, I-R, U-R. They are all what's called in the blue Canoe color vowel system purple shirt words. And if you practice these sounds, remembering them as purple shirt words, it becomes much easier to pronounce them correctly. I see some heads nodding. This is a fun app because they have a bunch of games and they motivate you and help you keep yourself engaged using score points. And I just want to say about that one more thing. It's not about having a perfect accent. North American English is not better than some other English. But if you're speaking with North Americans and they're having trouble understanding you, this is a really good way to overcome that barrier. The final trick is you need to celebrate your successes. So when you create that language learning plan and you establish milestones for yourself, as you achieve them, make sure that you give yourself a pat on the back. And it's important to know how you're going to measure your progress. So at NEI, that initial speaking assessment establishes a baseline, and then after every 36 hours of the course, we repeat the assessment so the learner can see this particular example started with an NEI score of 9, and after 6 months had improved to a 12, and another 6 months to a 15. At each of those points, we review with the learner how their goals have changed, what we recommend focusing on next, and it reinforces what they're learning. If you're doing your own individual learning plan, build in those milestones where you're going to give yourself credit for what you've accomplished. So we've talked about the two biggest barriers to language learning for adults and 5 tricks to help you overcome those barriers. My company, NEI, helps serious learners of all levels to boost their confidence and their communication success. English is not the most important language in the world. Лично мне мир намного интереснее на разных языках, кроме английского. I love the richness that living in a multilingual world gives my brain. And I hope I convinced some of you that the best age to learn a language is when you need it. So this is my email address, and I hope that you will come up and talk to me or send me an email so we can talk. I'd love to hear your ideas about adult language learning, and let's talk. Thank you.